Hello, my name is Hassan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast shorts. There's no co-host on these shorts episodes. These are now around 2 to 4 minute, sometimes as long as 6 to 10 minute observations, ideas, thoughts, or rants about the literature, philosophy, psychology, and even the theology of leadership. Because listening to me talk about leadership for now around 2 to 4 minutes is still better than reading and trying to understand yet another business book. Even that business book your coworker won't stop raving about because it quote-unquote changed their life, but you can't see any difference in their leadership behavior. So how good could that author be? In any environment, when the conditions for conflict and hostility are ready for conflict and hostility to commence, the party who commits fully once the fight has started has a better opportunity to win the fight than the party who dithers while Rome burns. For those of us who don't know anything about conflict, physical or psychological, we assume that our instincts and quote-unquote flight or fight mode will kick in when any battle starts, and that somehow we will perform somewhat admirably. We've been watching too many Hollywood movies. The problem is our quote-unquote flight mechanism in the form of avoidance, fear, distraction, or accommodation is much more likely to kick in than our quote-unquote fight mechanism. Particularly when we are faced with an opponent that seems as though they are better prepared, more confident, or better armed, either psychologically or physically, than we are. However, in our lack of analysis, we also forget that every action tends to engender an equal and opposing reaction. Such reactions provide feedback in a conflict that we can either adapt to or avoid. The enemy on the other side gets a vote, and we get a vote too in response to the enemy's vote. And so on until each side in the battle or the conflict or the disagreement or the war is exhausted, demoralized, or makes a mistake they can't recover from in order to continue the fight. Leaders must understand that demonstrating the appropriate amount of enthusiasm or reluctance for battle before the fight matters little once the fight has begun. No one will remember your principled resistance to fighting when the fighting actually starts. And no one will remember your incendiary bloodlust when the fighting commences. All your followers will remember is what you did or didn't do once the fists started flying, the words started escalating, or the bombs began dropping. Principles matter only so far as they take you, and others to a courageous end. In the face of action, final action such as it were, by another party. And well, that's it for me. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast today. And now that you've made it this far, you should subscribe to the audio version of this show on all the major podcast players, including Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube Music, and everywhere else where podcasts are available. There's also a video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to the video version of this podcast on the Leadership Toolbox channel on YouTube. Just search for Leadership Toolbox and hit the subscribe button there on YouTube. And while you're doing that, leave a 5-star review if you like what we're doing here on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Just go below the player and hit 5 stars. We need those reviews to grow, and it's the easiest way to help grow this show. And tell all your friends, of course, in leadership. By the way, if you don't like what we're doing here, well, you can always listen to another leadership show. There are several other good ones out there. At least that's what I've heard. All right. Well, that's it for me.